Professor Ziller, thank you so very much for joining our interview series. Let me start right away with the first question. How has the AfD capitalized on anti-immigrant sentiment in Germany? In your research, how do you see social trust mediating the relationship between nativist attitudes and radical right-wing support?
Yeah, thanks for having me. So immigration is like the forefront topic in this election, and the AfD is capitalizing on this, as you already mentioned. Why is anti-immigrant attitudes and immigration an important topic? First of all, there has been terrorist incidents in Magdeburg, Aschaffenburg, and Munich that are very problematic. At the same time, this increases the salience, of course, of the immigration topic. And not only the AfD, but also the mainstream parties um, took a really strong and uh, take on immigration, so that they really try to stop immigration. They really are in a competition who's the toughest on immigration. And immigration is a salient topic, as I said. It's also proximate, so people experience that there is immigration in their everyday lives. And it's also an ambivalent topic. So you can think of immigration that this is really a chance to increase also economic growth, but at the same time it also increases maybe conflict and the idea that there are newcomers who also get something out of the welfare system, for instance. So it's an ambivalent topic, and politics can really moderate this. It's not like unemployment or economic growth that everyone agrees on these topics. It's more like, okay, now it's not finally discussed and debated, and therefore politics has also some normative power to shape also public discourse.
What role does welfare chauvinism play in AfD's electoral success? How the perceptions of welfare access by migrants influence native support for far-right parties?
Okay, so welfare chauvinism refers to the view that public support is needed, but at the same time it should be restricted and only be available to usually non-immigrants. So there has been a huge debate about this. And also, as I already mentioned, that all the mainstream parties are also quite restrictive towards immigration at the moment. And if you look in the electoral manifests and the programs of these parties, they most of them, except for the left and the Green and the SPD, but center and right parties and also the liberal FDP, they all want to restrict access of immigrants when it comes to welfare, when it comes to the so-called Bürgergeld, which is like the low-level insurance that everyone has the right to get, and also, for instance, Ukrainian refugees, they can get it. And for instance, the AfD, this party is against this, so they want to take things away from immigrants they already are eligible to. So the center, but especially the right-wing populist parties, they really want to capitalize or use this welfare chauvinism as a strategy to to shift also public discourse again towards the right.
Right. Does local governance efficiency impact nativist sentiment? Your research highlights how local government performance affects public attitudes toward immigrants. Could decentralization in Germany mitigate or exacerbate these attitudes?
I mean, first of all, immigration is also a challenge to the social cohesion of receiving societies. There are newcomers, they don't speak the language, and people have to get accustomed to the new system. And also, people who already live here, they have to get used to it. And yeah, also, they have to outline how integration has to or should work. So this can come with some transactional costs. And the better local governments can manage these integration-related tasks, which also refers to, for instance, housing, while at the same time upholding high service quality. So all this administrative work, but also having all the services available, and managing public spaces, managing street maintenance and stuff like that. So the better they are at this and the additional task of integration, the better it is. And this might mitigate resource competition so that also the non-immigrants don't have the feeling that something is taken away from them. And it also keeps like social relations intact. So governments, local governments that are already good at this, so that they also foster, for instance, organizations and associations, they keep a nice social fabric intact where also newcomers can be integrated in. And this is also all of this is part of like a vital community, and local governments and local government efficiency can contribute to this.
All right. What is the relationship between conspiracy beliefs and far-right support in Germany? Does misinformation play a role in strengthening AfD's voter base? If so, to what extent has the AfD leveraged conspiracy theories to mobilize support, and how do these narratives influence public trust in democratic institutions?
So the AfD is a right-wing populist party, and we see that especially from the radical right, but a little bit also from the radical left. There are conspiracy theories. Also, you can think of Trump and the Republicans, and also this QAnon movement, which accused politicians that they are engaged in child abuse and all worse things you can imagine. In Germany, it's not like this. So there are not like typical conspiracy theories here, but there is, of course, misinformation going on. So this is, of course, this is something that we also can see here, but not so much conspiracy theories. And this misinformation is also a problem because it challenges social norms, and it serves to break political correctness and to also hinder the narrative of equality. So if people are really think, oh, there is a bad political elite, we need to take action against them, this also opens the gate for more misinformation. You can even think of this as a type of information smog, where people don't really see what's right and what's true. And this is also a strategy we see from the right-wing populist AfD, that they engage in so many misinformation about current political elites, but also about immigrants, so that this really, so to say, hinders the normal people to see what's right or what's wrong. So conspiracy theories not so much, but information smog and misinformation, they also engage in this.
Okay. Your research suggests that political corruption erodes trust in institutions and drives radical right support. How has this dynamic played out in Germany? And what role has the AfD played in capitalizing on political distrust?
Okay, so political distrust is a really important thing that we see has also gained some momentum in the past years. And one strategy of the AfD is to undermine the competencies of the established center parties, um, especially regarding the area of immigration and integration. So they sort of deflect from all the other problems like prices, climate problems, inequality. So they deflect with this immigration topic a bit from these also important topics. And here they managed to establish that they are, or they at least seem that they have like a really good solution to this immigration, namely to restrict immigration as much as possible. This sort of, if this is like the only issue in town, immigration, and the AfD can claim that they are like the toughest in managing that, then this, of course, undermines also the perceived competencies in the established political actors and also fosters political distrust. Corruption as such, there has not been too many corruption scandals in the past few years. So this is not like compared to, for instance, Southern and Eastern European countries. This is not like the most important issue here. But as I said, these issues like government quality and economic policies, they are not even in the focus anymore. And what are sources of political discontent? One could be experiencing unfairness, like corruption, first-hand corruption. Of course, it can be that there's some corruption going on in all countries, also in Germany, but this is very little. Then perceiving actual problems or scandals. But here you have to say that the AfD, for instance, is one of the parties that has like more like issues with campaigning donations, so that they have more like a corruption issue going on. And the other thing is perceiving made-up problems. So if you really have problems and you can't really distinguish is this is an actual problem or just a perceived one, this is what we are facing now at the moment, and this is where most of the political discontent comes from.
All right. What impact does effective polarization have on radical right-wing support? Are voters more motivated by anti-elite sentiment or ideological alignment when choosing to support AfD?
Okay, so both is important. So effective polarization is when parties, especially nowadays, not on the economic left-right axis, but more on the social-cultural left-right axis. So progressive parties like the Greens in Germany versus the conservative or social-cultural conservative parties like the AfD on the right. So if they increasingly don't like each other and have like negative feelings and sentiments towards each other, this is like what also fuels even more that people don't feel that they are represented by center parties, but that they have to decide to go on the very left or on the very right. So effective polarization comes a little bit from the increasing popularity of populist right parties, but it also fuels it again. And anti-elite sentiments, this is of course something that is like a traditional narrative besides anti-immigration stances. And this is especially important or becomes more important for those who don't, or who are not anti-immigrants so much. For instance, even established immigrants, so that came here a couple of years ago, they can be really appealed by anti-elitist narratives, and this is what the AfD does. And also they do this in social media, for instance. So on TikTok, for instance, you can see like lots of channels that really like try to focus on people with a Turkish immigrant background. And they don't talk too much about anti-immigration, but more like about anti-elitist stances. And this is also something which the AfD has quite popular narratives, and the other parties, so the Democratic and center parties, they have trouble to get like similar narratives that are similar attractive as this.
All right. In your work on public support for state surveillance, you highlight the role of security threats in shaping policy preferences. How has the AfD framed surveillance policies, and what are the implications for civil liberties in Germany?
I mean, the most important thing is that most people are not so critical about state surveillance anymore. And I think a lot of this has to do with that we are already quite accustomed to this due to our cell phones and the usage of digital technologies. So in the end, there is not so much like, let's say, an issue debate about surveillance. So that there are parties who say, okay, we are against surveillance and let's protect civil liberties. And other parties say, okay, wow, it's not so important, or don't be afraid. Let's increase surveillance. So this is not the case. Most people accept surveillance, but in the end, it's not like a salient political issue at the moment. It comes from time to time, especially against the background of terrorist attacks, so that we all have also seen at the moment in Germany, for instance, in Munich or in Aschaffenburg. But here it's more about surveilling immigrants. So it's more about, okay, where have the agencies uh, problems to get hold or get track of immigrants that are Islamic and that may conduct these horrible terrorist attacks. So this is more like the discussion, and it comes down again to the immigration topic, basically, where they look who has the toughest rules and who is like most restrictive of immigrants. Of course, there are besides that, it's also a more substantial discussion. For instance, if you should have a register in Germany where people who have like specific psychological problems, that they are like in these registers, that they can get some help, but also that you can get hold of them if something gets down or there are some problems. And in Germany, due to its past with the GDR, but also the National Socialism, in Germany you have quite high civil liberties and data protection. So it's not that easy that everyone is in some registers that you have, for instance, in Northern European countries. So it's still an important topic, but basically no one talks about this except for immigration.
All right. The AfD has gained traction by opposing immigration and EU policies. How does their success compare to other radical right parties in Europe? And what unique factors have contributed to the rise in Germany?
Well, the AfD is similar to other parties or right-wing populist parties in Europe, are quite successful at the moment. And there are different reasons for that. So one reason is, of course, that we have like a series of crises, the Russian invasion in Ukraine, for instance, but also in Gaza and the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. But then we have also still, I would say, we're still in the aftermath of COVID-19 pandemic. So there is like let's say, a feeling of insecurity in many peoples, and the AfD and other right-wing populist parties, they have not the need to be constructive and to implement regulations. They have an easy time because they can typically just be against something and be critical. So they don't have to be politically active yet. Um, this is one reason why they are so successful at the moment, so that they really have easy answers that they don't have to prove that this really works. And the other thing is, of course, immigration is like an issue that people that is salient and proximate, as I already mentioned. But so the AfD has at the moment is similar as, for instance, in Austria has like solid support base that goes from around 18 percentage percent to, let's say, 25%. So this could be like everything could be in this range. But if you compare this to 3.5 years ago, when the last federal election was, they had just 10 or 11%. So this is like quite an increase. And I think it has a lot to do with the crisis, but also with the right-wing populists being able to really advertise themselves well on social media, and especially among younger cohorts who are also prone to experience crisis, but also they were quite successful there because I think they have a good strategy in terms of marketing and social media marketing.
How does AfD's position on European integration shape its voter appeal? What factors drive the party's Eurosceptic stance, and how does it compare to other radical right parties in Europe?
So the anti-European Union stance, it was a core narrative in the mid-2010s. So when the AfD was founded in 2013, it was mostly about anti-EU stances. Let's get back to our currency. Let's go out of Schengen, maybe even drop out of the European Union. And one factor was also that they were against the bailout of Greece. Through the financial crisis, Greece had still problems, and it was like the main motivation even to found this party in the first place. Nowadays, it's not the center focus, the European Union. So if you look in the election program of the AfD, of course, the European Union plays a role there, but it's more like, okay, the European Union is not legitimate. They are not allowed to raise taxes, but they do so. And let's not pay them anymore. If the AfD wins, then we don't pay them anymore. Something like this. So the idea of the AfD is to get like to a federation of European nations, so to abolish the European Union basically, if they could decide by themselves, and also to not contribute anymore financially, which basically, I mean, Germany is like the major financial has like major financial responsibilities here. So if this would like break away, it would be problematic to uphold the European Union in its current shape and form. And this is also what the AfD knows. So they don't want solidarity basically, but you know, it's could be that they say, okay, depending on if the other countries are also right-wing populists, then we would give them something. So, but this is, you know, we're not there yet. But at the moment, I think it's like they're still anti-EU, but it's not like the focus at the moment for them. Focus is on immigration and to also gain political power. This is also a shift that we have seen, like in the compared to the last elections, that the AfD really looks that they can get also power in the parliaments, that they maybe can work together with the conservative CDU. So this is something which is really new. Before that, it was mainly opposing the European Union, and now they really want to grab political power.
All right. How has the AfD framed the European Union as a threat to German identity? Does this discourse on sovereignty and immigration reflect broader trends in European far-right movements?
So, I mean, I think that all these, I mean, immigration and the question of who belongs as a citizen, this is still important. And this is like the main issue that also immigrants, for instance, in Germany are concerned about. So is it possible that we get like our citizenship withdrawn, something like that? Or what if we don't have the citizenship at the moment? What happens if the AfD gains maybe not entirely political power, but if they become more and more successful? So this is one issue and one question. And I mean, it's more like for immigrants have also who don't have like the citizenship of another European country. For those, it's like the main issue. Then, if you look at how is like the identity as Europeans important for the AfD, I would say it's not important for them. They don't mind if we have like a European overall identity. This is not the categories they think about. They think more in terms of who is friend and foe, who's the enemy, who is a friend of us. And we see that right-wing populists and extremists are increasingly connected. So this is what we see in the past 10 years. They made huge connections to each other. And previously it might have been that right-wing populists or extremists in Germany would say, or with Southern Europeans, or with people from Turkey, or with people from, I don't know, Eastern Europe. We don't want to have something to do with them because we are only like Germans and we want to remain Germans. Now it's different. Now these ethnic categories, they are not so important anymore. It's more like who is like another group of people or another country who has like a similar stance towards politics. Where are all other authoritarian versions of political systems that we can relate to? So, for instance, Hungary, Viktor Orban, Putin, of course, in Russia, and also Le Pen in France, Meloni in Italy. So these are like the groups of people the AfD also tries to get hold of and connects increasingly with. But it's not so much more about, okay, who's European, who's not European. Um, do we have like a common identity and so on? So these are not the categories the AfD thinks about. So this is something which was like important and critical to the European project, but the AfD does not frame this issue or discuss this issue at all.
All right. Your research explores how direct experiences with corruption influence voting behavior. How does the perception of elite corruption fuel support for the AfD, and how does the party itself navigate corruption scandals?
So the direct experience of corruption is it can be, of course, if you have like if you deal you need a doctor's appointment and then you pay something to get like an appointment, or if you have like trouble with the police, then you maybe can pay the police. And in Germany, incidences of everyday corruptions are very rare. Similar also to Northern European countries. If you look in Southern European and Eastern European countries, it's a little bit more, but it's still not like in developing countries of the global South. So this is not like a main problem, but the idea of this project was to look at the few people who might have experienced something like corruption, and if this like erodes their political trust, and this again increases their support for radical right-wing populist parties. There is like so to say loose connection between these three parts of this story, but it's not that systematic that you could like say that this is like a really important issue. What is even more important is like what is related to corruption is more like this issue of deprivation, so that you have the experience that you don't get enough what you feel that you deserve. And this factors into this thing that people who have anti-elitist stances, that they really feel that there is like a corrupt elite, something is going on behind the curtains, and you don't know what this is, and probably there is corruption ongoing. So this is more like a perception and not so much an experience. But the AfD, they have this narrative that the established political parties are incompetent and that they are also, let's say, corrupt, and they have this. Ironically, the issue is that the AfD has more like these issues of corruption with some of this campaign donations, that they can't really tell or don't want to tell where this money comes from. And also there were like some scandals that some AfD politicians have like ties to China and to Russia. And this is like a political opponent of Germany. And this is like something what you could like label as political corruption. So the scandals are more like from the AfD, from those who say that the other parties are corrupt. So this is like some sort of irony here. The question is, of course, why do people buy into this narrative, and why do they don't get that maybe the AfD is the most corrupt party? Um, the reason is again the AfD has a good strategy to deflect from these issues, so that they can like say, okay, maybe we do something like that, so it's not all that hidden anymore. So in the past 3 or 4 years, it's more and more out in the open, and similar to also Trump, they don't like try to hide what they are doing. They just say out loud, okay, we are doing this, we're dismantling institutions, we're dismantling administrations, we try to weaken this, and we try to weaken science, we try to weaken equality principles. And this is something which also the AfD increasingly not tries to hide, but they try to deflect from these issues and say, okay, it's something else that is important. For instance, it's immigration, and also the other parties are bad and something like that. So they try to do this, and surprisingly, it's really an effective strategy, because there are many people, or most of the core electorate, they also don't hide their intentions anymore. They don't say that, ah, yes, right-wing extremism is bad, but the AfD maybe is not so right-wing extremist, but they are just now fully on board and say, okay, it's right-wing extremists, so what? We we just So we're in with it. So and this is something new that just developed in the past 5 or 4 years, and it also has to do with public discourse and social norms that have changed a lot.
All right. And lastly, Professor Ziller, US Vice President J.D. Vance and Elon Musk actually has supported AfD. How do you think their support will influence the outcome of elections on Sunday?
So yeah, this is a good question. This is similar to Friedrich Merz, who had in the parliament a law brought in that was supported also by the AfD, and where they hugely debated to what extent this change in their policy of firewall might really influence election outcomes. What we saw now, or what we're seeing now at the moment, is not so much that the AfD gains even more than 20 or 21%. So this is quite stable. And one could ask, do we maybe underreport this, or do people underreport this? Maybe some of them do underreport this, but in the end, we have like still in our surveys quite people do say it frankly that they vote AfD or that they want to vote AfD. So this is also something that changed compared to previous years. So in the end, I don't think we underestimate what the AfD might gain. But at the end, there are quite still a huge segment in the German electorate that is not certain what they want to vote on Sunday. And for them, maybe even the few days that are left until the election are still important, and there can be still something like incidences or rhetoric. So in the end, I think J.D. Vance's statement might not have as a huge as an effect, but maybe the terrorist attack in Munich might have, because this is something that really gets into people, because it's a huge tragedy and a huge problem, of course. But I think this is more important than what J.D. Vance said. But in the end, he wants also to shift the narrative towards the right and want to enable power for the AfD. And no one had the idea that he is so open about this. So this is also something that the populist radical right parties become more and more open and don't hide their real intentions. This is at the end maybe also good, because now European Union and European leaders, they don't have to think, okay, maybe it's this way or the other way. They now know, and now maybe they can also take action. And this is also what they do, that they will have a conference about Ukraine, that they try to look how they can work closer together.
Right. Professor Ziller, thank you so very much for your time.
I thank
Appreciate
you.
it.